In the stillness of the African night, where shadows stretch long across the forest floor and the moonlight drips like silver paint onto the leaves, there lies a world unseen. The dense thickets of the untouched wilderness are alive with movement, but few can hear or see the creatures that call it home. The African wildcat, elusive and solitary, prowls the undergrowth with a silent grace, her green eyes like twin embers that flicker in the night. Her name is Nyara. Born in the shadow of ancient trees, she has lived in these woods for as long as she can remember, learning the rhythm of the forest, from the rustling of the grass to the high-pitched call of the owl. Nyara's senses are sharp, finely tuned to every shift in the breeze, every snap of a twig, every whisper in the dark. Tonight, however, something feels different. The air is thick with tension, the usual hum of the night stilled. As Nyara moves through the thick underbrush, her keen eyes flick over her surroundings, noting the smallest of disturbances. A breeze shifts, carrying with it the faintest trace of something foreign. A scent she doesn't recognize. It is not the usual smell of antelope or jackal. This is something darker, more insidious. She pauses, her body frozen as her ears swivel, listening for any sound, any movement. Her tail flicks nervously. The trees above her, dense with age, rustle gently in the wind, but there is an odd stillness beneath. Even the crickets have stopped their incessant song. In the distance, the call of a lion echoes, but it is too far to pose a threat. But Nyara knows that something is wrong. She continues her careful, padded steps, her instinct drawing her deeper into the heart of the forest. The further she goes, the darker it becomes, and the air grows colder. She has been here countless times, but tonight, it feels as though the very earth is holding its breath. The scent grows stronger, and Nyara's fur prickles with unease. It is a predator's scent, strong, sharp, and unfamiliar. Her claws dig into the soft earth, her muscles taut with the tension of the chase, though she does not know what she is chasing yet. She has been hunted before, and she recognizes the feeling of being pursued. She circles the area, eyes scanning the ground. The brush underfoot crackles not with the normal scurrying of smaller creatures, but with the unmistakable weight of something larger moving through the dark. Her heartbeat quickens. She darts forward, moving like a shadow, slipping through the trees and leaping gracefully over a patch of undergrowth. Suddenly she stops. A movement catches her eye. A flash of fur, too swift for her to track. There, in the gloom between the trunks of two ancient acacias, is a pair of glowing eyes. The eyes are not those of prey, but of something else, something far more dangerous. Nyara's hair stands on end as she watches the figure. It is not another wildcat nor a jackal. This creature is larger, its form vaguely feline but unmistakably wrong. Its eyes glisten with an unnatural yellow glow, and its movements are too calculated, too deliberate. Nyara hisses under her breath, her body tense and coiled, ready to flee if necessary. But the creature does not move closer. It simply watches her with cold, predatory patience. The silence between them stretches. The mysterious creature stands motionless, its presence hanging in the air like a dark cloud. Nyara takes a cautious step back, but the creature mirrors her movement, staying just out of reach. A wave of terror surges through her, but she suppresses it, focusing instead on her next move. She turns, moving to the left, then to the right. The creature follows her, its gaze unyielding. It is not attacking, it is studying, waiting for her to make a mistake. Suddenly, the ground beneath Nyara's paws shifts. She steps into a hidden pit, an old trap long forgotten, its camouflage surface betraying her. She tumbles into the hole, her legs pinwheeling as she scrambles to regain balance. The creature's eyes are upon her, its yellow gaze unwavering. In the split second of her fall, a wave of realization hits her. The creature is not a hunter in the way she thought. It is not after her life. It is after something deeper, something far more dangerous. Nyara's heart pounds as the pieces come together. The predator is not hunting for food. It is hunting for power. And she, in this ancient sacred place, is caught in the middle of a forgotten war, a war that stretches back centuries, hidden beneath the forest's canopy, concealed in the dark corners of the world. She scrambles to escape the pit, her claws scraping against the sides. But the creature does not pursue. Instead, it turns and melts back into the shadows, as if it had never existed at all. Nyara leaps from the pit and bolts, running through the dense undergrowth with a speed born of pure instinct. She hears the soft footfalls behind her, but they are not pursuing, merely marking her path, tracking her movement. The forest is alive now, as though responding to the silent warning of the creature's presence. Birds flutter in sudden bursts of panic, and the wind picks up, swirling through the trees with an intensity that rattles the branches. The night no longer feels quiet and still. It feels charged with something ancient, something unseen but palpably dangerous. Nyara pushes on, knowing that the forest has shifted. There is no safe place now, not even the deepest corners where she once found solace. The creature, whatever it is, has reawakened something forgotten. Suddenly, a flicker of motion catches her eye. A shape moves in the distance. A large, imposing figure. It is the lion. But this time, the lion does not roar. It is silent, its eyes reflecting the strange yellow glow that Nyara had seen in the creature. And then she understands. The lion is not just a predator, it too is a part of the dark force in the forest. It has been touched by whatever force has awoken, and now it too hunts not for food, but for something else, something that binds them all to this land. Nyara's breath catches in her throat as the realization settles in. This is no longer the forest she knew, and she is no longer the hunter. She is the hunted. The night continues to grow darker. The trees loom larger, the forest thicker. The sounds of the night are no longer just the calls of the wild. They are the cries of something far older, far more dangerous, and Nyara is at the center of it all. Her eyes flicker to the horizon, and she knows that the game has changed. The forest is alive, and it is watching. As the first light of dawn begins to pierce through the canopy, Nyara disappears into the shadows, her form swallowed by the dense thickets, leaving behind only the lingering presence of the creature in the dark. The forest remains still, but for how long? As the first rays of dawn creep over the horizon, the forest seems to pause in anticipation. The night's tension lingers in the air, a heaviness that hasn't quite dissipated. Nyara's paws leave no trace on the moist earth as she moves through the underbrush, her movements fluid and calculated, but her heart pounds relentlessly in her chest. She is aware of every sound, the faint rustle of leaves above her, the shallow breath of some unseen creature. But the presence of the yellowane predator, the creature that had followed her, continues to haunt the edges of her senses. It is still there, watching. Even though she can't see it, she can feel its gaze on her, silent, patient, and omnipresent. The forest seems to hold its breath, and Nyara knows that something far larger than her is unfolding within its depths. She approaches the clearing near a grove of tall, crooked trees. This place is familiar to her. She has marked it many times, a haven where she could always retreat when the pressures of the forest became too great. The sun's light dappled the ground in warm pools, and the scent of earth and moss filled her lungs. It was a place that felt safe. Or so she thought. As she steps into the clearing, her eyes immediately snap to the far side, where the shadows seem to linger unnaturally long, and there, in the midst of those shadows, stands the lion. The same one she had seen before, Its massive form is almost ghostly in the dim light of the early morning. Its eyes glisten faintly, that eerie yellow glow shimmering in the dull light. The lion is motionless, its gaze fixed on something beyond Nyara, its massive body tense. She freezes, her muscles coiling. The lion's presence stirs something primal in her. There is no mistaking the power in its stance, the predatory grace in the way it holds itself. Yet there is something off, something not quite right. The lion is not acting like a typical predator. Its movements are too deliberate, too controlled. It doesn't pounce, it waits, and it watches. For a long while, Nyara stays hidden in the shadows, studying the creature. The tension in the air grows palpable, as if every living thing in the forest is now holding its breath. The lion suddenly shifts, its head snapping toward her, but it does not make a move to chase. Instead, its piercing eyes lock onto hers, as though it knows her, as though it has been waiting for her all along. The hairs on Nyara's neck stand up. She can feel the pulse of the forest around her, its rhythm becoming more erratic, almost frantic. The lion doesn't charge, it simply observes, almost as though it's testing her. For a moment, everything is still, too still. The forest is empty of sound, as if all the creatures have sensed the change in the air. Even the wind has died, leaving nothing but the oppressive silence. Suddenly, the ground beneath Nyara shifts. She stumbles slightly as the earth quivers, a faint tremor running through the soil. The lion's head tilts, sensing it too, and then a sound, low, guttural, breaks the stillness. A rumble, like distant thunder, shakes the trees. Without warning, the shadows at the far end of the clearing begin to shift. A figure emerges, a larger, darker silhouette. Nyara's breath catches in her throat as she watches. It is not another lion. It is something else entirely. Something far darker. The creature steps forward, its massive muscular form nearly blending into the shadows, its yellow eyes gleaming like molten gold. The lion's behavior shifts instantly. It growls, a deep, resonant rumble, backing away slowly, its body trembling. It is as though the lion is afraid. Nyara's pulse races. What could possibly make a creature as powerful as a lion retreat in fear? The new arrival moves with a fluidity that seems unnatural, its massive form carrying an energy that makes Nyara's fur bristle. There is a stillness to the air, a charged presence that threatens to overwhelm everything. This new creature is not merely a predator, it is a force of nature, an ancient presence, something that has lain dormant in the earth, biding its time. Nyara's instincts scream at her to run, to flee deeper into the forest, but something keeps her rooted to the spot. It is as though the air itself is pressing against her, trapping her in place. Her muscles are tight, her breathing shallow as she watches the creature, trying to make sense of it. It isn't a jaguar or a leopard. It isn't even a predator that she recognizes from the wild. It is something older, something far older. The creature moves closer, and with each step, the forest seems to shudder. The trees groan as if the very earth itself is responding to its presence. Nyara knows now that this is no ordinary predator. This is something that has been here long before her, long before the lions or the wildcats. This is a force that predates them all. She is witnessing the resurgence of an ancient, forgotten power, and she is caught in its wake. As the creature steps into the clearing, it looks directly at her, its eyes locking with hers. For a moment, she feels an overwhelming sense of recognition, as though she's been here before, as though the forest itself has known her for a lifetime. The creature moves again, its gaze unwavering. In a split second, everything changes. The lion, suddenly more aggressive, charges forward. But it isn't a straightforward attack. It moves with an intensity that is wild and frantic. The two creatures collide, a clash of raw power that shakes the earth. Nyara stands frozen as the ground trembles beneath the force of their struggle. The air is thick with the sound of roaring, snarling, and the sharp crack of bone against bone. The lion fights with all its might, but the creature, whatever it is, remains unfazed. The lion is outmatched, its strength no match for the ancient predator that stands before it. It swipes again, but the creature dodges with eerie grace. Each movement is a deliberate counter, as though it knows the lion's every move before it happens. Nyara's heart races as the battle intensifies, but she is unable to look away. The forest around her is alive with the fury of the two creatures, and for the first time in her life, Nyara realizes the true scale of the world she inhabits. This is not a battle for survival, it is a battle for dominance, for power over the land itself. And then, just as quickly as it began, the fight ceases. The lion, battered and bruised, retreats into the shadows, disappearing back into the dark forest. The ancient creature stands still, its gaze never leaving Nyara's. For a long moment, there is nothing but silence. But Nyara understands. The forest has changed, the rules have shifted, and she, the Wildcat, is no longer the top of the food chain. With one final, lingering glance, the creature vanishes into the forest as swiftly as it had appeared. The clearing is still, and the air slowly begins to return to its natural rhythm. But Nyara knows that the forest will never be the same. The ancient power has awakened, and with it, a new order has begun. And the wildcats of the forest? They are no longer the hunters. The clearing remains eerily quiet after the battle has subsided. The soft light of dawn continues to filter through the dense canopy, casting long dappled shadows on the forest floor. Nyara stands motionless, her body frozen in a taut, defensive posture. Her heart is still racing, her senses heightened, every fiber of her being alert to the shifting, unknown forces in the forest. The air smells of dust, blood, and something else. Something metallic, almost as though the very earth has been altered by the encounter. The lion is gone, retreating into the depths of the woods, nursing its wounds, but the presence of the ancient creature still lingers in the air. The tension in the atmosphere is palpable, the forest no longer the safe sanctuary Nyara once knew. It feels like a place on the verge of transformation. Something vast and ancient is stirring beneath the surface. Nyara's instincts urge her to flee, to vanish into the shadows and put as much distance as possible between herself and the events that just unfolded. But the strange pull of the forest keeps her rooted in place, the sense that something is watching, something is waiting. The same ancient force that drove the lion to fear now surrounds her, and Nyara feels it deep in her bones. She knows that she cannot escape it. Not now. She begins to move, cautiously, her senses stretched to their limits. Every crack of a twig, every shift in the wind makes her pause, but there is no sign of the creature, no sound of pursuit. Just the soft, unsettling hum of the forest around her, as if the trees themselves are holding their breath. Nyara slips through the undergrowth, her body low and silent, moving through the forest with the practiced stealth of a predator. She knows these woods like the back of her paw, but now, even the familiar paths feel unfamiliar, shrouded in an uneasy silence, as though something is hiding just beyond the edge of her perception. Hours pass, the sky lightening and then darkening again as she moves deeper into the forest. She feels the exhaustion in her bones, but the need to find safety, to understand what is happening, keeps her going. The forest around her is changing, and with each step, Nyara feels the weight of the forest's ancient secrets pressing on her shoulders. Then, as dusk begins to fall once more, something changes. Nyara pauses at the edge of a dense thicket, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon. In the distance, she spots something moving. Another creature, its silhouette barely visible against the twilight. She crouches low, her muscles tensed, her breathing shallow as she watches. The shape moves closer, and Nyara feels a flicker of recognition. It is not the ancient predator, not the lion, not the creature that had emerged from the shadows. This one is different, this one is familiar. It is another wildcat, though larger than most. Its fur is tawny, the golden hue of the savanna, its body sleek and powerful. Nyara watches as it prowls through the underbrush, its movements fluid and precise, its eyes alert but unafraid. There is something about this wildcat that feels different. Something off in the way it moves, as though it is not entirely in tune with the natural rhythms of the forest. Nyara's instincts flare with caution, but curiosity holds her in place. The wildcat comes closer, and as it does, Nyara's heart skips a beat. The creature's eyes, those glowing yellow eyes, meet hers. Her breath catches in her throat. This is not a normal wildcat.